O'Reilly. You need parts? O'Reilly Auto Parts has parts. Need them fast? We've got fast. No matter what you need, we have thousands of professional parts people doing their part to make sure you have it. Product availability. Just one part that makes O'Reilly stand apart. The professional parts people. O'Reilly Auto Parts.
You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Hey everybody, welcome to episode number 36 of the Hunting Collective. I'm Ben O'Brien, and today I am joined by Tawney. Tawney is the CEO of a group called Backcountry Hunters Anglers, which I hope you are all aware of. We've had his colleague John Gale on before to talk about what BHA is, what they do. Land in this podcast, he and I didn't really get into the nuts and bolts of BHA and the inner workings and what it is. So if you've never heard of that, stop now and go back and find my podcast with John Gale and give it a listen, because it'll give you a lot of background on their organization. But if you do know what BHA is and you do know who Land is, hopefully this will be a great exploration of what he thinks, what the organization thinks, their goals, and some of the challenges they face, and some of the ways that they intend to solve those problems. We talked a lot about the election, the midterms. We talked a lot about some of the bigger challenges facing folks in the hunting and angling community, and I always find Land to be a frank character and someone who really tells it like it is and has an understanding of where our community needs to go, and is a great voice for all of us. So please enjoy episode number 36 and Mr. Tawney. Tawney, what's up, man?
Ben O'Brien.
Hey!
In the house.
Welcome to Bozeman, although you live in Montana, so...
I do. But Bozeman is a good place. I don't make it over here often enough.
Yeah. This is your first time in the MeatEater Incorporated offices.
It is.
How you feel about that?
Well, what I love is that the outside is very inconspicuous. There's just like one little teeny MeatEater sticker.
We're working on it.
But I kind of like that, though. Like, it's like this, then all of a sudden you go into the mothership. And no, it's a cool space. We were talking earlier, this is kind of like a hub over here with Sitka really close.
Yeah.
You got Onyx, and then you got Stone Glacier, Mr. Ranch. And
you know what I always say? I've said this for years, that Bozeman is the Silicon Valley of the hunting industry.
You should make a T-shirt.
You think I should make a T-shirt?
I think you
about
should.
That?
I mean, because somebody else is going to say somebody else is going to claim it, right?
That person would be wrong and mostly an asshole, because I came up with it. Somebody, just so everybody knows, I said this earlier, like, oh yeah, a lot of people have been saying that, and one of our wonderful colleagues here is like, well, you didn't come up with that. I'm like, oh yeah, I did.
Yeah.
And so I feel like if we make it a T-shirt,
own it, then you that is yours.
There's nothing that anybody can do about it once it's on a T-shirt. So anyway, Bozeman, if you come here, you'll see I'm going to make a sign and put it up on the highway that says Bozeman, the Silicon Valley of the West.
Now here's one that somebody was telling me about. I haven't seen it yet though, and it says the best downtown in America or something like that. And I'm like, no offense to Bozeman, but I don't think it's like the best downtown in Montana. So
yeah, come on. Like let's have a little self-awareness, Bozeman. Have a little bit of self-awareness. So there's a couple things like that. Like it's perspective. When I moved here, everybody's like, "Wow, man, it's really a growing place and a lot of traffic and it's super annoying." And I said, "Well, how many people live here?" Like, 40,000, whatever the number is.
Yeah,
it ain't more than 50.
Yeah,
I was like, "That's a small town and all
like a
of
suburb, like right?
That's a suburb. That's like a street corner in Chicago.
Yeah,
like coming from Austin, Texas, that's a subdivision.
Yeah,
so calm down.
Yeah,
they're like, well, there's a lot of traffic. I go, tell me about that. They're like, are the cars stopped or are they moving? We're like, well, they're moving at full speed, but there's a lot of cars. Like, listen, man.
It's all relative, right?
It's all relative.
It's all relative.
It's all relative. It's really cold out, but you can ski down the hill.
You know what's going to happen? I'm going to remember this conversation, and I'm going to hear you complain about traffic at some point.
Exactly.
Like, hey.
100%. As soon as I'm here for like 3 years, but when I moved to Bozeman, 2018.
Cars could go 65. Now they're out in 55.
Bullshit. My dad's definitely an old grumbly guy now.
Mm-hmm.
I tell myself I'm never going to be like that. I'm always going to be like a super positive old man.
Yeah.
If I ever make that far, I'm probably lying.
You started saying things to your kids that you had their parents said to you, and like, are your kid right?
Sure.
Like I'm doing that now, and I'm catching myself and being like, oh, I thought I'd said I'd never say that,
But also, like, because technology is going so fast, you know this because you have older children than I do, but like, I look at a 16-year-old human, and I'm like, I can't. What the fuck is that?
Yeah.
What is that over there?
Yeah.
I don't have anything in common with that person.
Yeah.
And I'm only 32. That ain't good.
Right.
So imagine when like I'm 50 years old, what it's going to be.
Yeah. I mean,
the tech is moving so quickly.
It is, but like, I mean, we're trying as much as we can to keep our kids away from tech.
Yeah.
Right? Like my daughter is 10 and she's the only one in her class that doesn't have her own device, is what she says. Like, so whether that's a cell phone, iPad, whatever it is, she doesn't have it. And I think like kids will be the same. Like there's like even that 16-year-old, like they're gonna be able to find places to identify with them, right? You know, and I mean like the technology, yes. Like when you see those kids out and they're all on their phones at lunch, and they're probably texting themselves. Like that's absolutely blowing my mind. But you get them out in the woods and like all that stuff goes away. So
that's my favorite part about that.
Yeah,
because there is, I'm always like technology can in some ways provide perspective, but it's artificial because you're not really in Japan talking to somebody in Japan if you have a pen pal on the internet.
Right.
It's not even pen pal. People don't say that shit anymore.
I can't believe you just brought that up.
Pen pal on the internet.
Pal, yeah.
Nobody pen pals on the internet. I'm going to be an old man when I'm 40.
Yeah, well, yeah, you're already on your way.
Like pen pal. We're talking about the digital age. I'm like, that digital pen pals, that's great.
Remember when email first started?
Yeah, when I was in high school.
Yeah,
I remember when the first cell phones came out. No, I don't. But I do think there is this artificial perspective, right? It's manufactured. You are speaking to someone in a different place and time, in a different culture, with a different set of experiences, but you're not really with them.
Right.
But when you take someone and go outside and you delete all that artificial perspective and you get real perspective and it's shared, you can't beat it.
Or use your analogy like you're talking to somebody in Japan or whatever over email and you're not really there.
Yeah.
If you go there, that's a much different experience, much richer experience, right? So hopefully, you're able to find some rich experiences with your...
All the 16-year-olds are listening now like, we got virtual reality, bitch.
I don't know what you guys are talking about. I don't have to leave my house, and I'm all over the world.
You're like, dude, I'm in the Himalayas right now.
And that's right now. Right?
Yeah.
Let alone what they're going to come up with, right?
It's going to be bad. So anything we're saying.
Oh, man, we are getting old, aren't we?
Yeah, we're definitely getting
I'm
old.
older than you. I'm 43, but I feel like I'm 60 right now in this conversation.
Yeah, I feel bad, too. I'm kind of wearing, like, people can't see us, but I'm wearing kind of like a cardi, like an old man sweater.
Yeah, totally.
And I saw it in the mirror today.
Old man O'Brien.
I smell like
I'm getting the gray on the beard. That's the big thing that's changing. That and the hair on my head, right? Like are two indications I'm getting old. Besides, like that my knees are like when I'm going up and down those steep mountains. It's not great.
Anyway, the outdoors are great. You guys should go. Don't.
Have you ever heard of those? The outdoors?
Yeah, you should go there.
Yeah.
So let's talk about virtual reality for a minute because I think we're going to get to some deep subjects, deeper than that. Do your kids have there been any rumblings in their worlds? I mean, they live in Montana, so they're in a little bit of different environment. Like, what are their friends doing in the tech space? Like, what do they have? Are they playing?
I mean, Fortnite, dude,
Fortnite
is
is
like
the thing I
this
was gonna
huge
say.
thing. And like my son, he's playing basketball right now. And I'll watch him in practice, and all of a sudden he'll just start doing that one dance, dude. It's like, and he has never even played the game, but it's like all his buddies are playing it, and then like the dances is kind of like this thing. So I'd say that's huge. What else? I mean, my kids just like, we're not letting them do it, and so like I'm not as hip onto like what
he's
the technology that they're doing. You know, I mean, like we're playing, I guess. What is it? Minecraft is gigantic with these kids, which
Really?
I mean, I'm a big Lego guy. You know, I grew
too.
up playing Legos, you know, and I still like it. Like, I'll admit it, I still like playing Legos, and I buy my son Legos and my daughter so I can
And you
build
build them,
them.
yeah.
And I don't play with them after that, but I like building stuff.
Yeah.
And so that idea of Minecraft is you're kind of building stuff all the time. So I
Yeah.
can see the attraction to that. But like, that is the one. We have, you know, PS4 at our house, and we have Minecraft. And my son, he gets to play that like for an hour on the weekends, and that's
Yeah.
what he wants to. Like, we have soccer, we have football.
Yeah.
He wants to play Minecraft.
Wow. I'm doing this because I'm working for a digital media company, and right now I sound like someone who shouldn't be working for a digital media company.
I think when next meeting is like Minecraft, MeatEater
Yeah,
Minecraft. That's
what
where we need to
I'm looking
go.
for ideas to pitch in the next board meeting. Hey guys, Fortnite. Have you ever heard of it? It's awesome. We should invest.
Get Steve doing the dance and see what happens.
Yeah, that'll probably. Hey, you never know.
Might happen.
We gotta freshen this place up a little bit.
That's right.
Changing subjects. There's no transition. From
There's a hard
Fortnite.
turn that's
There
gonna
is
happen
no
there.
transition from Fortnite into politics. If there is one, please help me.
Something
with it.
about like, I don't know much about the game, but something about zombies walking around. That's kind of politics
Yeah,
sometimes.
strain the swamp
Yeah,
situation. There was this election here recently.
Yeah.
You know, I think everybody in the lead up now with our media coverage and the way that we kind of run in cycles, I think every election feels like the most important election. I don't know if that's, I would imagine that's not generally unique to our time and our generation, but there is still massive amounts of chatter around these elections, whether it's a midterm like we just experienced or it's a presidential election, whatever it ends up being, gubernatorial, it doesn't matter.
Totally.
So as you think about in your position with BHA, in your position as a leader in the conservation space,
Yeah.
how do you view elections? Like, do you view them as opportunities for much needed change? Do you view them as general opportunities for new legislation, or is it maintenance for what we already have? Like, how did you come into this midterm? What were your thoughts around how you would approach it?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that first I look at this maybe globally, like this opportunity to vote is pretty unique in the world.
Yeah.
And what a special thing that we have. And, you know, it's an opportunity for you to make your voice count,
Yeah.
you know? And for me, we shouldn't take that lightly,
No.
you know? And so I think the idea that every election, you know, is like important, it is,
It
you
is.
know? And like people, like your voice doesn't count unless you use it, right? And stop bitching, you know, if you don't vote, right? Now, if you vote, then you got a chance to bitch because, you know, you actually participated in this process. And so just fundamentally there, like how rad is that? I think that's like a good thing. I think, you know, elections in general are opportunities to really provide, or it's a vehicle for talking about the things that you care about, you know, and whether that's public lands and waters, which we care about, whether that's, you know, an array of other issues, healthcare, whatever it is. Elections bring that out and they make people like focused on those issues. And then the elected, you know, the people that are running for office, they have to talk about them to the people on where they stand. I think that's a really good thing. And without elections, you know, I think you have an opportunity to talk about your issues more during election cycle sometimes because there's hyper awareness around it, right?
People trying to make a decision.
Absolutely. So, you know, before I talk about kind of maybe how we at BHA and me in particular as CEO looked at this, I think when I look at our system here in the United States, it's a system of checks and balances. And I think that there's this word compromise that has become a dirty word. And well, if you compromise, that means that you've
You're weak.
Yeah, and like nobody wants to be seen as weak, and so we're gonna not move forward with something because we don't want to look weak.
That's right.
And so compromise is important. I think that when you find compromise, that's something that stands the test of time. When you force something down somebody's throat that's on the far left or on the far right, just using those kind of two political parties, I don't think that's going to last very long. I think it's the stuff that's forged in the middle that is compromised. And so it's a long way of saying that for this election in particular, when you have the presidency and both houses controlled by one party, and I don't care, again, if that's Democrats or Republicans, there's not as much compromise that is happening at that point. Now that you have one house that's going to be controlled by one party and another by the other, and then a presidency, like you have much more opportunity for compromise. And I think that sweet spot that is in the middle, right? And so either that or nothing's going to happen. If nothing happens, like that's bad for the country. And I think that's one of the reasons why, people are frustrated with the rhetoric that is out there. Is that things aren't happening. And so I think that's partly, what elections are for, is to help create opportunities for that. And I think, there's many things that the Democrats want to get done. There's many things that the Republicans want to get done. And guess what? If they want to get those things done, they're going to have to work together.
Have to work together.
Have to.
I always found that to be, one of the logical fallacies of the way our politics work. Is like we have these two, and we always are addressing polarity.
Yeah.
We never get to start the conversation by addressing our similarities.
Right.
We never get to be like, what we both agree on.
Yeah.
Because that's too easy.
Yep.
But we start by addressing the polarity in our value systems and the way we think.
Yeah.
Which gets you down the wrong road from taking step one.
Don't waste your time too, right?
Waste your time.
Let's go talk about the things we disagree on.
Yeah. And but that just creates our political environment right now.
Yeah.
It's like people are, my family, in my family circle, they're like, let's just not talk about politics. I'm like, what?
Yeah.
Are you what?
Yeah.
What else are we going to talk about?
That was my grandma at the dinner table. Like,
my grandma
get irate about
that was like a
fucking
generational thing. One
Yeah.
thing is my grandfather used to be like, there's 3 things we don't talk about. It was like, I can't remember, religion, politics, and sex. I was like, those are the 3 most interesting things to talk about.
I think definitely I don't want to be talking about sex with my grandparents.
I was like, listen, Grandpa, I got a question.
At the dinner table.
Yeah.
I mean, compromise, it's like it's shown as weak, and I think that I hope that people start understanding that's how this country works, and like that's, if you and I go out tonight and go have a beer, and if I was like, no, you can only drink this beer, and you're like, I don't like that beer, and I'm like, no, you're drinking that beer, like we wouldn't be able to hang out, like that just wouldn't happen. But if I'm like, oh, well, you can have a picture of that this time, and I'll have a picture of this next time.
Let's each have a different beer and tell each other why these beers are better than the other one.
I know, and it's, we could talk all night about that analogy probably.
Yeah. Then let's
and
go
to better used with the beer in hand. But I think I think we need to talk about compromise, and I think now that we're going to be with these different parties controlling different houses, I think we're going to get closer to that.
Think so?
I don't want to be
a lot of people.
I don't want to be Pollyannish and say it's going to be solved tomorrow. But I think it's going to be contentious too.
That's part of what my original question around your feel, like when you think about, mentally and emotionally, like think about the midterm. Because when I thought about the midterm, I was stressed out, man. Because I knew a lot of good things would happen. I knew I just knew it would be a mix of good and bad for like my value system.
Right.
And I hope to learn some stuff along the way. But like the stress was around talking about it. The stress was around, the anxiety was around bringing up the subject and knowing, wading into the pool, that it was gonna have sharks in it.
Yeah.
Like, and that is, for somebody like me who likes to talk, that sucks, man. Because there's some important issues there we should be able to hammer out without being too worried that a bunch of people are going to hate you for just for wanting to have the conversation. Not for saying, I know I'm right, but for saying, hey, here's a thing that we should discuss.
Yeah.
And even for that fact, knowing that you're going to get, some negativity brought into the thing.
Yeah, I mean, I think politics are a bloody sport, especially around elections.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like you have a winner and you have a loser, and bad things, are said about people, and I mean, it's a pretty bloody sport. And I think during that time, like you're describing, then it's hard to kind of maybe talk about these things because things are so hot.
Yeah.
Right? Well, now the elections happen.
Yep.
Changes have happened. Let's move forward. Like there's nothing else to do than move forward in my mind. And so hopefully,
even our president said that in his. I don't like to listen to anything that he says, just because he says foolish things. But I listened to because I was after the election, I was kind of in this mode of wanting to collect my thoughts around what had happened and what the impact was, and then move on with my life and understand like this, the environment we're now in, and move on and live my life. But I did listen to his his news conference directly after the elections were over, and he said, "Hey, now we can be a little nicer to each other." Like, well, okay, that's good, but maybe we just practice that
all the time.
All the time.
Right? Like that should be the way it is all the time.
Yeah.
But
it needs to be. But listen, we can go through that all day, but I think
that's not going to happen.
Yeah, that's not going to happen.
But it is good to have him say that, and then let's see how it happens in practice. They're going to have this. We'll get into details later probably in a little bit, but we'll have this lame duck session, that I think a lot of things will potentially happen between now and the first week of December. And then you'll have a break over the holidays, and then the new Congress will start in January, and we'll see how they want to play. And I think it's anytime there's a transition where there's been a house controlled by somebody and then there's a new leadership, I think it's really important that we focus on what's good for the country at that point versus it's now time to put your notches in the belt, so to speak, right? Like, oh, you guys did this. You did this to us for so long. Now we're going to do it to you. And that is something I'm very tired of, and hopefully we can move past that.
Well, I mean, I was in D.C. a couple of months ago and talking to some folks, and something that came up around that partisanship was, it came up 2 or 3 different times, but I thought was odd, around the duck stamp. And, the sportsman going to Congress saying, raise that sucker, raise that tax.
Yeah.
We are the constituency that will pay the tax. We are asking you to raise it up.
This directly affects us, and we want it.
We want it.
Yeah.
And there's some folks in our government that were like, listen, I got elected by saying that I would never raise the tax.
Yeah.
Be like, I get that. I get that. But you can think critically, yes? Like, this is the one exception to what you ran on, right?
Yeah.
If the constituency that will pay the tax, that is getting taxed, is demanding for the raising the tax. And that is the one most, that's an extreme example, I think. But an example of roadblocks that just shouldn't exist, logically can't exist if we're going to get anything done.
Yeah, I mean, I know that senator by name.
Yeah, I do too. I don't know.
And at the same time, he got an award that year from an organization that is based around the duck stamp, and I just listening to the people, I think, is the most important thing, right? Yeah. This idea of flip-flopping, let's say, I said no new taxes, and if I do this and I'm flip-flopping, no. You're listening to the people, right?
Yeah.
You're getting more information. It's the same thing with Jason Chaffetz, when he changed his ideas on the sale of those 3 million acres, that was a good thing because he listened to people. Right?
Even if he didn't want to.
Right.
If he got dragged, which he did, got dragged kicking and screaming. At least he stopped kicking and screaming at some point and he gave in. That's...
Politicians should do that.
That's sound governance, in my opinion.
They're representing the people, right? So, no, I think you're right on that one. I think back to, these elections create opportunities to create dialogues and to talk about, issues that are important to you.
Yeah.
And for us, that's public lands and public waters. And what's great about when the election is, as far as timing, is that September is kind of this month. You have National Public Lands Day. You have National Hunting Fishing Day. And a couple years ago, we were like, man, that's great for those days, but let's think about September as Public Lands Month, right? And so really celebrated Public Lands Month in September and then started a campaign about voting for public lands and waters.
Yeah.
And really what that campaign is that, we legally can't tell you who to vote for. I can't say, pick, that politician over there is the one that's going to support us no matter what. Go vote for them. We can't do that as a 501c3. What we can do is start to have people critically ask questions, and then, one of the things that's great is when politicians are on the stump, going out and talking to a bunch of people, they like to get votes and say things. And then once they say those things, you can hold them accountable if they win. Right. And so being able to talk to them and ask them questions about public lands and waters during that month of September and then up to the election, I think was a really important thing. Yeah. So I think what we really, with our Vote Public Lands and Waters campaign, are trying to do is really, one, is to have people think about that when they make that vote, but it also creates this dialogue then for the politicians that are running at that point.
Yeah, no, that's important. That dialogue is, and to something I've heard you say before, and a lot of people have said, and it seems common sense, but I think in practice it's challenging for people. if you go to a rally or if you pick up a pen and paper or go to your computer and write an email to these politicians, 99.9% of them will read it and listen. If you're pointed and you state your case, I have found, I've done it many times. Like a lot of times you'll get a letter back pretty quick.
Yeah, and sometimes a lot of times it'll be form letters.
Yes.
But I think what's happening then, and now we're getting into like policy sides, but like, is that staffer, that legislative correspondent who's opening the mail, is keeping score.
Yes.
Right, and so then they're reporting to their boss that day, right, and they're saying, okay, we've got 5 letters over here that say this, and then 1 letter over here that says this. And so this is what we got. So it gives them an idea of a representation of their constituents, what their constituents think, right? Yeah. And so it's super important. And no matter what, that's a way for your voice to count. But one thing, and I'd be remiss not to say this, is that we did for the first time this year, we did candidate questionnaires. And so basically, as a 501c3, that's something we can do. Go out and ask, candidates that are running, so both the Democrat and the Republican, give them a fair opportunity to be able to answer the questions, and then just publish what they say, verbatim, and not what they said on an interview, but what they write down, right? Yes. So there's no
you can't infer anything.
Exactly. There's no bait and switch or anything like that. Like, oh, I kind of heard him say this, so I'm going to say that. So it's exactly what they said, and then we published those. And so we did those in 3 states. We did that in Colorado, New Mexico, and Wisconsin. And again, I'm it's our first time doing it. I'm super excited that we did it. Our folks on the ground, our kind of grassroots army, were the ones that were reaching out to those campaigns. It wasn't, me or John Gale reaching out to them. It was the people on the ground. Yep. And we got a great response back. And as far as participation. And so what that sets us up for, I hope, is that in 2020 that we can do that in all 50 states.
Yeah.
We'll start to do it up in Canada as well. And so, again, we can't tell you who to vote for, but we can provide information for you so you can look at candidate X, candidate Y, and say, oh, this is what they said about this issue, and this is what they said, about this issue. So
that's fantastic.
Then again, then the person can figure out for their own, who they want to vote for.
Well, I've probably talked about this before. I really feel, conservation groups, that is the job. The job is to gather together like-minded people and inform them of what the right choices are and what the important issues are. And BHA has done that in spades with, it codifies in my mind around Chaffetz, but it's more than that.
Yeah.
But, national monuments, people, Land and Water Conservation Fund was not trending some years ago.
It's pretty rad now, right?
So rad. It's rad. That's a perfect.
People know what it is.
Yeah, people know what it is. So I think there's a lot of power in that, and as long as you're swinging that big stick to inform, you can't lose. Yeah, you'll never lose.
No, and I think that's one of the, for those people listening to this, it's one of our most important jobs is as a nonprofit and at BHA is to help educate. But I think as a voter, as an American citizen, one of the most important things that you can do is educate yourself, you know, and BHA, yes, please listen to us, become a member, all those things. But there's many places to get information right now, and go get that information and then make educated decisions, you know. And I think, we talked about voting before, and I think, it's a responsibility for us to vote, but also to make an educated vote. If you're just going in there and just kind of going down and doing things by the party line, or just kind of not voting with information, I think that does a disservice to this country.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. And I think sportsmen, hunters and anglers are understanding that.
Yeah,
more than ever. I would posit. I think
the awakening is happening.
The awakening is happening. We were talking about that a little bit earlier. I mean, I feel like there is this willingness to. You've seen it, BHA events. We've seen it at MeatEater live events. I've seen it even with Yeti. I mean, that people willing to travel, willing to are committed to this idea, and willing to give for it and give a lot for it.
Yep.
And I feel if you're willing to give for something, you damn sure are at the same time willing to put in the effort to be educated about it.
Yep.
I mean, I feel like those things go hand in hand.
Yeah.
And so what you guys are doing at BHA is huge.
Yeah. I mean, I call it the awakening, but also like the revolution.
Yeah.
Right? Like the people, when they are educated and they know what they want, then they will demand their politicians. And again, doesn't matter if you're a Democrat or Republican, public lands and public waters, they cross a lot of party lines.
Well, I always say it's trending because it's an easy play.
Yeah.
It's an easy America, bald eagles.
Right. Apple pie,
public lands. Yep. Well, maybe that's a T-shirt. Hey.
Ooh. As American as apple pie.
As American as
I've
apple
used that
pie.
line before. I will tell you, I said it before.
Have you said that? Anyway, Bozeman is the Silicon Valley. Of
Back to your like great statement today.
Yeah, as people, anybody,
Slogan.
like if you follow the MeatEater podcast, Steve made a quote about high fence squirrel hunting.
I love that you guys put it into the.
And then
there is no high fence squirrel hunting, right?
And we immediately made a T-shirt.
T-shirt, yeah.
And so everything I say on every podcast from now on is in an effort to get T-shirts made about what I'm saying.
And I love it because there's 100 people that are going to wear that shirt.
Yeah. So I'm thinking every sentence I say, I'm trying to make it into a T-shirt.
And what I love about that squirrel one is the conversations that will be started around that.
People
right?
like
What
people
that
that don't hunt. What are you talking about? Can't squirrels climb fences?
Exactly.
What were we talking about?
I don't know.
Way off.
I mean, I think that
Idealism in America.
Yeah, well, like an education, right? You know,
Yes.
And I think that's what BHA is trying to do, and I think that's why we're growing so quickly. Is that people, see kind of that we're honest players in this whole thing,
Yeah.
and like here's the information. If you want to be part of our tribe,
Yeah.
we're building a coalition of the willing, and they're coming in droves. And
Yeah.
I think that these politicians, and if I watched this last election. And we're sitting here in Montana. I mean, public lands played a major role.
For
a major role. And I think that's exciting to me. I think I said to somebody after the election is that, people want to put a roof over their head and they want to, talk about medicine. And right now, public lands, at least in this state, is like one of those top 3 issues. And that is exciting. I think there's other places in the country, like Colorado and Idaho, it played a big role in the governor's race over in Idaho, more in the primary than it did in the general, but definitely in the primary. And so public lands is becoming an issue that is a top tier issue.
Right.
And I think it's partly because it's such a unifying issue, and it's also a place to pick up votes in the middle. If you want to get elected, you got to be right on public lands and public waters. And so I think that election proved some of that. I think that, there was 3 ballot initiatives that we looked at in particular. One in Connecticut.
Yep.
Connecticut, the way it was before this ballot initiative was passed, was very easy for whoever was in charge of the administration just to sell their state public land. So before I even talk about that, there's another reason why we do not want federally managed public lands transferred to the states, because they will sell them. And so in Connecticut, it was very easy. And so what this basically ballot initiative did was it made it very hard, or not harder. It's like a 2/3, and then there has to be a public input. And that got voted. I think it was like 83% that it passed. Like, that's awesome. Like, people came out of the woodwork and were like, "Hey, we like our state lands," And like, if you're gonna divest them, okay, maybe that one should be, but we want to be part of that process. And so that was super cool. And did that with a bunch of partners, up there. And then moved down to Georgia. I think this is really cool.
This is a cool one. This one you're about to talk about.
It's rad. Now, in Montana, it doesn't translate because we don't have a sales tax. But down there, and I hope this is something that starts to permeate in other states. But basically, you have a sales tax on outdoor goods there. And instead of that just going to the general fund, now it'll go back to conservation and access. And I think it's up to like 80% or something like that. Which is so cool. Right? That means then the users are then paying for the thing. This is like this backpack tax that we all kind of talked about at a federal level, but this is happening at a state level. It's not new taxes. It's utilizing existing taxes to pay for the stuff that we all care about.
Which is, most of our system of funding. I mean, Pittman Robertson was originally back in, the 1920s when it was put out there, was an existing tax that they torn it over. So there was never any new, back to, the nearly 100 years of that tax, which has been very successful. It's never been anything other than...
No. And it's done. Look at the things that it's done.
Oh.
And like the leverage that we've been able to like accomplish with that is like $1 billion a year right now. So that one is super exciting. And it also passed by like...
Do you feel like that'll be like a breeding, that'll be a litmus test for that idea?
Absolutely. I think
has to be.
And the idea that it passed, 80 plus, like both of those passed over 80. The Georgia Wildlife Federation down there, I think, they've been working on this issue for a long time. Our chapter in the Southeast is new, and it was something that they were able to grab onto. The one thing we can do as a 501c3 is we can support ballot initiatives or measures, I guess, whichever way you want to say it.
Yeah.
And so that was one that we totally dove into, which I think was pretty cool.
Yeah, there's a bunch of those. We were working on a piece for the MeatEater.com right now that'll be out soon. Probably be out by the time this gets on the line. But about ballot initiatives, because that's an interesting one. I think people get caught up in the popularity contest of guy 1 versus guy 2, or however that works. But these ballot just kind of get swept under the rug unless it's connected to some other value related, like it's connected to marijuana or connected to something that has a little bit of a spin up in the media cycle. But for sportsmen, these are,
they played really well. Both of those played really well. And I think besides the sportsman's community, I think that was like the outdoor community that really supported that. And so I was just going to say, like, the Georgia Wildlife Federation has been around for a long time, and like they've been working on this, and then a coalition that included us and others were able to come in and really provide some muscle to get that thing over the finish line.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there, because they're great and they're super friendly, and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Which is super sweet. And then the last one, and I guess I'll talk about one more after this, it's a local one, but was in Colorado. And basically, this was one that was defeated, which thankfully, but that was going to pay landowners for changes in like wildlife management that potentially could be harmful to their business or to their property. And so then we, the taxpayers, are going to be paying them for having wildlife, like let's say on their property. And that to me is like so backwards. Like if you're going to live in these wild places, then one of those requirements is like you're in you're part of that whole ecosystem.
We have a social contract here.
Yeah.
A societal contract.
Yeah, absolutely.
Whereas you can own that ground,
right? But
that's our wildlife still.
Right. Right.
You're holding it in trust for us, so don't mess it up, man.
Absolutely. So that got defeated, thankfully, and it got defeated like by 74%. So that's a huge number as well. So I think, again, like just using those three as like bellwethers, like people are paying attention to these issues, and two were passed overwhelmingly, and one was defeated overwhelmingly that were right in our wheelhouse as conservationists and as public landowners. So to me, that's a good sign of things. One back home, we've done a open space bond, for like the last 2 decades. We've had money to provide open space, so that's for recreation, that's for view shed, that's for clean air and clean water, for wildlife habitat. And so this year it was on the ballot again, $15 million, I think, from Missoula. with another one that was like $500,000 for maintenance, and both of those passed overwhelmingly. Like it's one of those ones when like 1% is in and they call it, and you're like, whoa, wait a minute, there's still like 99% to go.
The whole 1% said yes, so we're gonna cut.
I was like, how's that happen? But they had indications and exit polling and stuff, whatever they could call it, and so that was called early, and I'm pretty excited about that.
That's
just for
great.
my backyard, Missoula.
Yeah.
And they're going to concentrate on the kind of river corridor, the Clark Fork, so in town, but also east and west of town too. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah. Would you grade like around those ballot initiatives? How would you grade hunters and anglers, or the sportsman's community, however you want to call it? How would you grade our ability to see those things and address them like in the right way possible? Like if you're looking at the whole of the election, the whole of the ballot initiatives, and the entire picture, I hate to take.
I think we need to do better.
Yeah.
I think we need to do better.
Would you give us a C minus?
I think in Georgia, in the places, I think in Georgia and in Connecticut, and I know those much better than I do than one in Colorado. I think I'd give those like B pluses.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think in general, we could be doing a much better job.
Yeah. What areas specifically? Because I know it's hard. It's a very general question.
Well, it is, but I think it's also you're getting to something is that I think we were talking about the responsibility at BHA, and I think we take it very seriously in trying to inform our people, right? And so that's why we did those candidate forums, candidate questionnaires. And so I wish the sportsman's community as a whole were doing more of that, and we're not. We really aren't. And I could slam on the table and talk about how cool BHA is because we're doing this, which maybe a little bit, but we're only cool as a community if we're doing that all over the place and with multiple organizations, and so that you have multiple, pieces of information to look at as a voter before you go forward. So C is being nice.
Yeah. No, because we, as we looked at the election, specifically Ranella and I looked at it, but this company here, it's like, okay, we know the issues.
Yeah.
And it would be super easy if there was a politician out there or a party out there that picked them all up.
Yeah.
Because we really looked at public lands and access. We kind of lumped those two things together, which you could separate them, but we lumped them together for efficiency probably.
Yeah.
Habitat. And really around habitat, I've become really like, people's like, what's your main goal when hunting? I kind of think right now my main goal is healthy ecosystems.
Absolutely.
Like if you ask me, like, what's the one thing what's your one main goal? I'd be like, gosh, I got to tell you, it's the health of the overall thing.
Yep.
It's not, it's knowing that elk aren't just, mountains aren't a vending machine for elk. It's knowing that like to really be a greater part of our society, we have to be all about healthy ecosystems.
Yep. Clean air, clean water. They matter. And even if you're not going to go chase that elk around, right? Those ecosystems provide that. If you're in a big city and you're drinking water and you got clean air that you're not, coughing around, it's those wild places that are providing that for you.
Well, and it goes to
those
land use.
Yeah,
it goes
absolutely.
to public and private land use. Like how do private landowners, like we were just talking about there, how do they hinge cut, or how do they, keep riparian corridors intact, or how do they, leave nesting grounds and like there's just so many things that like just as a general person that likes to go outside, that's what I think. So that's for us that was really where we stopped at habitat. We're like, wait a minute, here we are. The next one being wildlife management, but it's kind of the same. There's the same ethos there.
Absolutely.
The fourth one is guns. Now you could, we don't have any real problems around archery rights. I don't feel like anybody trying to take our broadheads.
But maybe you heard it here first.
You heard it here
all
first.
All of a sudden, like there's this rumor that they're going to take away.
They're trying to take away mechanicals. Our right to
Only
conceal,
fixed blades.
our right to conceal broadheads. and so, like, I think guns becomes the fourth one.
Yep.
And so, as I look at, because I tend to think like it's nice that we started with ballot initiatives first, because I tend to think micro to macro in this situation. I tend to think like, what are the things I can do for my state or where I live or my people, and then got that taken care of. Now let's address the macro. What's going down?
Yeah.
On a bigger level, but. So if you were to take those four things, am I missing anything there? If I said public lands and access, guns, habitat, and wildlife management, are we missing any big issues?
No, because I think those buckets are big enough to put anything in.
Yeah, you could put anything in there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
How do we,
we talked about this before, and this is something that comes up and gets pretty prickly. But guns versus, it's really kind of, I hate to put it like this, but it's kind of guns versus the other three when you look at party to party. Am I wrong in saying that?
I mean, I think there's exceptions, definitely,
Of course.
like both there,
like,
but as a general rule,
yeah, I would say stop and say like there's exceptions. Not every Republican does one thing, not every Democrat, but
Absolutely.
like as party lines go,
I think that's fair.
In a gross generalization that can be dangerous.
Yeah. Yes. So anybody like don't hold like Ben to that or me, because there's definitely exceptions on both sides.
That's a gross generalization. I get that, but just trying to line it out like as a value system thing for folks.
I think it's fair.
That's pretty fair.
I think it's fair. Which is unfortunate. And it doesn't have to be that way. And I think that's sorry to break in. But I think that's one of the things that we're trying to do at BHA, right? We think every politician should care about public lands and public waters. Now, there may be nuances within that on how things get done, but if we start there, and then we're working with both sides of the aisle, then we should be in a much better place than we're right now.
Well, and there were some good examples in this election cycle around you can't get to the table unless you're into public lands.
Yeah,
like don't even show up.
Yeah,
some state elections where you might as well just not be here if you're not into public lands, which I thought was the movement, intangible movement right there.
Absolutely.
This is what happens when enough people agree that this thing is special and this thing is important.
Yeah.
And so how do we, and guns have already been that. We've crested that mountain long ago around like a lot of people vote based on gun rights. There's a lot of places where you can't really get to the table unless you're a certain way around the Second Amendment. So I guess my biggest question is and I think I've heard from a lot of people, and I know this is true, gun rights on one side and public lands, access, healthy ecosystems on the other.
Yep. What
do we do? Like how do we bring people to the middle, but also how do we deal with our current situation?
You just go home.
Yeah, so you're done. I had a guy in here earlier that basically said that. He said he told his daughter, he was like, listen, man, he lives in Florida, and I brought up the caring for the Everglades versus gun rights scenario, and he's just like, I kind of told my daughter, like, maybe this is the time where we just don't vote. I was like, dude, get out of here.
That's just not the answer.
Take a walk.
Yeah, that's just not the answer to me. I think that, for me, that's the people demanding what they want, right? It's not good enough for you to be just great on guns. Like, you got to be good on public lands. You got to be good on access. You got to be good on habitat. You got to be, all those things that are the other three. They're three pretty big buckets, but you can do both, right? And so I think that's that side, and I think it's the other side, demanding that they're better on guns while they're good at those other things. And so I think we, the people, how do you do that? I think, the Land and Water Conservation Fund here in Montana has become something that you support or you do not get elected. Mm-hmm. Now, that didn't happen in a vacuum. That happened over, a decade probably of sportsmen, including BHA and others, and then the greater conservation community demanding that. Yeah. And now that is the way it is. Like that is the line in the sand, right? And so I think, to me, how did that happen? That happened with a lot of accountability.
Yeah.
Holding people when they say one thing and do another, holding them accountable. And it's also like cheerleading. And so, when somebody does come around and they start to support something that maybe they didn't in the past, that you cheerlead the heck out of that. Yeah. So how does that happen? I think that's the way you do it. Yeah. It doesn't happen overnight.
No.
That's a long-term process, but I think that's part of the problem, I think, with elections too, right? That's why I would hate to be a House member, right? You're always running. Every 2 years is the election, but you are always running. Every single thing that you are doing is setting you up for that next election.
Yeah, and every single thing you do that in the moment, or even to most of your constituency is good.
Yeah,
always has a negative.
Yeah,
you're never in a win-win.
Never. And so it's hard to think long term that way, right? It's like, okay, where's the wind at? And this is the way my people think right now, and I would be responsive to that, which is good. But it's hard to think long term.
And that's what, as a sportsman's community, what I personally struggle with and hope we can all achieve at some point, which we're humans, we'll never achieve it, but the stiff wind blow in the same direction all the time. Mm-hmm. Because then the politicians have, if if they're wind vanes, they got no choice but to blow with us.
Absolutely.
They got no choice but to blow with us.
I'm gonna like steal that one from you.
Could that be a T-shirt?
Oh man, that like the stiff wind. There'd be a whole.
I'm thinking of the illustrations right now. What the stiff wind might look like.
But it's true, you know. I mean, I think if you create enough of a grassroots kind of voice, right? No matter what the issue, and just pound on it. There's one that I'll give you an example of that maybe is a little weird. But when I was growing up, like there was no like none of like the kids that I grew up with had gay parents. Yes, there was divorced families, but that was like a man and a woman, and there was none of that. Gay rights weren't even talked about. This is like when, you know, this is not that long ago.
Yeah.
And now my daughter has a classmate who has 4 moms, which means there was 2 moms that were together first, and then they got divorced and married, you know, 2 other women.
Oh, yeah.
My daughter doesn't, it's like, somebody's hungry.
We got it. We're a dog-friendly office.
And then Tule's here. Tule, we'll get you food here in a minute. Nobody else will probably hear that than us. But anyways, that like she doesn't even care.
Yeah.
Like, it's not even a big deal. So by the time she's voting age, that issue is going to be so far and gone. It'll probably be solved.
It'll be a reality.
By then, but like that's just the way it is. Yeah. And so like these things are changing. Things are progressing. And so when I think about like public lands and like the long-term viability of that, like we're having these conversations now, and I hope it becomes like, you know, like weird to use that analogy, but this thing that it's just the way it is.
Yeah.
You know, and that's like you are going to be supportive of these things. And if you are not, then you are so far out on the limb that nobody really is.
Dude, if this hunting podcast was expressly against public lands,
yeah.
I'm sorry, but I'd be out. And if this podcast was expressly against guns, I'd be out too. Yeah. And I would want people to kick me out, right? Yeah. Kick me out of the boat if I'm being that way.
Yeah, that analogy.
Yeah.
Somebody's telling us it's like almost time to wrap this thing up.
Yeah, let's go. Oh, she's fine. But I think that's a big part of it, you know. Yeah. Is picking those topics and sticking to them. And that's we're just now getting to a point where this movement for public lands, this movement for clean access or clean water and clean land and is becoming a big enough pull that it feels to me like the weight of it is the same as the weight of the Second Amendment. Yeah. Like it feels like before a lot of people just voted when they're thinking about sportsmen, they're just thinking, you know, if you're an NRA A+ candidate, I'm voting for you.
Yeah.
That's not necessarily the case now because there is this other very heavy thing in the room that says like, you better come to the table with public lands too, you son of a bitch. You know, like.
Yeah.
So it's just starting to get complicated because I think of where we are.
So I think that's partly like I think that's partly the ethos that's changing and like partly like the education that's starting to happen. But it's also there's these things on the outside that are happening as well.
Yeah.
You know, and like I think about, you know, these fires that are in California right now. We've been having catastrophic fires for the last decade. You know, now we've got one that like it's the deadliest one on record in California, 56 people. It's super, super sad. But one of the things I'm listening to, you know, on the radio on the way over here today is there's many factors that are contributing to that fire. You know, suppression for 100 years, building in this, this like forest kind of urban interface that like probably we have no business in building in. You know, and so like part of I think why these conversations are going to become top tier is because of these pressures from the outside as well. They're just reality and it's Mother Nature, like, and that's what's happening. And we're growing, you know, our population in the United States, our population in the world, it's growing all the time, which is causing more stresses on our planet. And so how are we going to carry forward, you know? And I think those things are now being pushed in our face, you know? And I think, you know, climate change is a pretty hot topic, pun intended, but that as it becomes more of a reality, we have to deal with that. Guess what? We're going to deal with it. You know? And until that stuff is right in our face, and the fires are part of that example, besides other things, you know, I mean, sea level rise, all these things.
Hurricane.
That's when we're going to start to do something about it. And I don't know if we're at critical mass there yet, but it's starting to feel like it.
I remember, you know, I was a editor at Peterson's Hunting Magazine. This was maybe 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
And we wrote a piece about the moose population in Minnesota.
Right.
and how the changing climate was affecting a lot of things and killing a lot of moose.
Yeah, the ticks in particular were like
the ticks. Yep. And I thought, wow, when I read the article, I thought it was written by a fellow named David Hart, and I read it and I thought, what a great exploration of like just impacts of just how what we care about and the greater effect on our world is starting to kind of really cozy up with each other here.
Yeah.
And I guess rather foolishly, I thought our readership or the hunting community would embrace that and be like, yeah, okay, something good to think about. Let me do a little bit more thinking on that. But man, I've never seen any more hate mail come into a publication around.
Because it's been so politicized.
It's been so politicized. And so I hope that what we're talking about with the stiff wind is like, yeah, let's stiff wind it with the politicize the things that really we know to be good and true.
Yeah.
Let's line up the apple pie public lands and I think guns are right in there. Maybe that's another shirt.
Both.
There's another shirt: apple pie, guns, public lands.
Both of that shit. Like I think it has to be that way though. And I think like we are shooting ourselves. Another pun, but like we are shooting ourselves in the foot if we're only thinking about guns, and we are shooting ourselves in the foot if we're only thinking about access and habitat and those other things. Right now, I myself am not that worried about my guns being taken away.
Yeah.
But there are threats out there, and so we have to do both. And to me, it's no longer you can be either side, and it's no longer we should demand from our politicians that they care about both. Yeah. And if we demand that stiff win, then we will get it.
Yeah.
And if they don't listen to us, guess what? They don't get elected.
Well, that's it. You swing this all the way back to the super idealistic conversation in the beginning here, where we're talking about vote and that's what it means to vote, and it's like that's what this means though. Yeah. You have a chance to be part of that changing tide or the stiff wind. Like if we all together say, hey. You don't get to call yourself an advocate for sportsmen unless you have 1, 2, 3, 4 things checked off. And don't come with that bullshit.
Yeah.
Don't come over here with that bullshit. Don't come over here with that, like, I'm a sportsman, I love this. And don't prove it.
Right.
And if we all can agree on those things, then. And again, Renell and I, the podcast you can listen to that we did right around, prior to the election, we tried to answer the question of if you had to choose between guns and public lands, what would you do?
Yeah.
Or guns and healthy ecosystems. And we're like, fuck that. We don't want to do that.
Yeah.
If we did, we would give up our guns and then immediately go get them back.
Right.
Like if I had to make that decision today, I'd be like, here's your guns, but then I would go and start a rebellion and we go get them back. But I'm not doing that.
Let's do it right now.
I'm not doing that.
Yeah.
And so if there's any organizations out there, I love BHA, but if we get sniffs of like this isn't what's going on, we'll call it out.
Yeah.
But it is what's going on.
Yeah.
And I think another thing sportsmen need to do, hunters and anglers need to do, is sniff harder.
Yeah.
Sniff them.
Don't listen to rhetoric.
Yeah.
Right? Like
fuck the rhetoric.
And that's what I love about that's another T-shirt, dude. That one actually.
Dude, we are coming out with
that one. Is a killer one.
We are coming out with a pro nuance anti-bullshit T-shirt. I'm announcing that right now for the Hunting Collective. That it's got little stars on it. It looks like a Trump election shirt.
Awesome.
but that goes to that. It's like look harder. Yeah. Fucking look harder.
Absolutely.
I am probably the poster boy for having been in, like caring about both these things a whole shit ton.
Yeah.
When it comes to some of the things that are beating up against each other right now, and it's on me to freaking think it out.
That's why podcasts, like plug for this podcast, right? They're so important because they are long form conversations versus a meme or a headline that you see, right? Which are basically the same thing, and like. The algorithms or whatever and the Russian bots that are like infiltrating us, like you're getting like some pretty serious propaganda pushed in your face that doesn't have any depth to it, right?
Yeah.
So go out, listen to podcasts, go read. Like that's the education part that we talked about earlier too. Like that's vital for us to be an educated, electorate.
Yeah, no, and I think that's spin that all up together. We could talk about who won, who lost, but it's not necessary at
No.
this point.
No, and you know, I mean, again, I don't want to be too Pollyannish, but I think now that we have chambers controlled by 2 different parties, I think we're hopefully in a better place.
Yeah, no. And again, like I think going back to podcasts and our great friend, I think we could call him friend of the program, Joe Rogan, says it all the time. Like, go watch Fox News, go watch MSNBC, and try to find where true ideas are being exchanged in a way that is productive for those ideas to grow and find their legs.
Yeah.
Like, go find a segment. Sometimes I'll turn on like a news and there'll be like 7 people and a host. And they're all covering, and one of them says like 3 sentences, and somebody across the table's like, wait a minute. And they're bouncing around like a pinball machine.
Yeah.
And
there's really no dialogue that's going on.
No, nothing's going. Everybody just like wrote down 10 things to say before.
Yeah.
And that,
where's my talking point? Here it comes. Here it comes.
I got it.
Check. All right, now I got my 9 left.
Straighten my tie and get the fuck out of town.
Yeah, right. Tell everybody I did a good job.
Yeah, I did a great
job. I'm helping you, Mama.
So I think listen to these longer form conversations, read articles that really touch on the issues, and I'm probably guilty of this a lot, but I don't, I think having larger, broad, idealistic conversations is important and okay, because we are in a spot where it's time to have some of those conversations.
Yeah, and I think people are hungry for it.
Yeah.
I mean, I think that's why this podcast is, very popular, is because people are hungry for long form. They want something more.
Yeah. Yeah, they do.
Want something to make them think.
O'Reilly Auto Parts are in the business of keeping your car on the road. O'Reilly Auto Parts offer friendly, helpful service and the parts knowledge you need for all your maintenance and repairs. If you're confused about what part you need, like what wipers are going to be the best, what replacement headlights are going to be the best, go into O'Reilly and talk to the people that work there, because they're great and they're super friendly, and they'll get you squared away where you walk out knowing you got the right thing. They've got thousands of parts and accessories in stock, either in-store or online, so you never have to worry if you're in a jam. Do you need your windshield wipers replaced? You need a brake light fixed? You need some quick service? They'll help you find the right part or point you to the nearest local repair shop for help. The professional parts people at O'Reilly Auto Parts are your one-stop shop for all things auto do-it-yourself, and you can find what you need in-store or online. Stop by O'Reilly Auto Parts today or visit us at O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. That's O'ReillyAuto.com/MeatEater. You ever get that feeling you're stuck inside staring at screens and a primal urge kicks in? You crave wide open spaces, fresh air, the chance to connect with the land. Well, maybe it's time to find your own piece of the wild, but searching for property can be a maze. That's where Land.com comes in. They got millions of listings across the country, from mountain ranches to hidden fishing holes. Their search tools are like a seasoned guide helping you narrow down what you want. Land.com isn't just about buying and selling. It's about finding a place to hunt, fish, explore, or simply sit by a campfire and listen to the crickets. So head over to Land.com today to turn one day into today, because trust me, there's nothing quite like the feeling of standing on your own piece of earth. There's nothing like snook hook sets at dawn or catching a tarpon in the moonlight. Find your next fishing trip made easy on fishingbooker.com and experience the magic of the Sunshine State or any other destination on your fishing bucket list. Book a blue water adventure in search of sailfish or go snapper fishing with the kids. With over 6,000 captains and trips to choose from, planning your next one just got a whole lot easier. Download the Fishing Booker app on the Google Play or App Store, or visit them online at fishingbooker.com to book your trip today.
Let's talk about lame duck for a little bit, because I think, I don't know how many people really understand what's really at stake in this lame duck.
So food.
Yeah.
Like, you got this wounded duck on the water.
Yeah. So we're trying to make T-shirts at every turn here.
So lame duck, for those that don't know about it, lame duck is after the election, before the next Congress starts. So right after the election, until like the first week of December.
Yeah.
I would say, like, what's at stake. And one of the biggest things at stake is like the Land and Water Conservation Fund. Yeah. And, it's sunset September 30th of this year. And so now you're in this kind of limbo land. And I think, there was some momentum. Mr. Bishop in the House was able to hold a hearing and then ultimately get a vote out of his committee. And so that was a huge movement. Even if it's only just out of a committee, that would have been a stumbling block for a long time. So that happened. It happened too late, but at least it happened. The Senate has been working on a bill that's with Murkowski and with Cantwell, Republican and Democrat. They could hardly see eye to eye on many things, but on this issue, they're together, and that's that word, compromise. Yeah. And so I think we've got an opportunity. And, where I think it's going to end up is that we'll get permanent reauthorization, so we don't have to go to these 3-year extensions and like be worrying about that piece. There is talk about potentially doing some kind of full funding for the next 3 or 4 years, and so at least we get that, and then we can talk about where that funding comes from later. So I'm excited about that. Like I really am.
I think that has a chance to happen in the lame duck. Like
absolutely, absolutely. I think the pressure's there, and I think we have a big push coming. Starting that Monday after Thanksgiving, that we're going to be contacting all of our members and engaging them and, making phone calls during that period and being like, get it done as important, because what potentially can happen is then it's punted. It's like Democrats don't want Republicans to get a win. Republicans want to stall some because they don't like the program, right? And all of a sudden we don't get anything during lame duck, and then we're covered up in the next Congress with a bunch of other stuff that doesn't get to LWCF first, and then it just gets kicked down the road, and I think that's a bad thing for LWCF.
Yeah, and like in the LWCF, I was always trying to line up the opposition to it, because it seems, there's always going to be opposition to everything, but do you feel the opposition to it is appropriation? It's not that it should exist. It's like how we spend the money.
I think that's part of it. I think there's just some people fundamentally that don't like public land. Yeah. And so they don't want any new acquisitions, right? Gotcha. And so they're totally against new acquisitions.
Do you think their appropriation is just their excuse to stop for now? I mean, it's hard to argue against land and water conservation.
It is. I think, the piece that they want, if this is permanently authorized and then it becomes dedicated funding, which means it doesn't have to go through the appropriations process, then you got to find a pay for. So that's $900 million you got to find a pay for. So that is a problem. It's not one that you can't solve, right? And that's why people are out in D.C. are smart and they can go find that money. And it's basically already, there.
Yeah.
But that is a hang-up, I think when it fundamentally comes down to when you start hearing about, that we want this to go through the appropriations process, and so we, can make sure where this money's going for and like how it's used. Yeah, like, that's a red herring to me. That's just that's the excuse that they're using.
That's what I see that a little bit. Like that seems like just a way to say like, hey, I don't know about this thing. Let's look into it further.
Right. It just like kicks it down the road. Right.
The National Monument thing is like, let's do a review.
Yep.
But like, we really know where you're
just kick it down.
Yeah, it's good.
So yeah, I think there's an opportunity there. There's talk about an omnibus public lands bill, which basically omnibus means it's a bunch of different bills that come together. Mm-hmm. Which that's super exciting. San Juan's Wilderness in Colorado would hopefully be on the docket there. We've got some stuff in Oregon. We've got some stuff in Washington. So there's like an opportunity to bring a bunch of like bills together that deal with public lands. Now, as we've talked about the word compromise, and it's always like, what's the worry on the other side? Exactly, because if they're gonna, if everybody's gonna get together and say we can pass this bill, what are the things that get tagged onto that we don't like? Now, the two things that we probably don't like, sage grouse is going to be a big one. And so I think, we're definitely nervous. And when I talk about sage grouse, it's like the stopping of implementing the conservation plans that had already been decided. Yeah. And it's like no funding of those plans and like basically stopping them from going forward.
What happened with the governorship there in Wyoming?
What did happen in the governorship?
Somebody Google it. I don't know. There's too many of them. I didn't track that. I don't live in that state.
The Republican won. I'd have to get back here on that one. I don't know that one.
Me either.
See, you stumped me. That's good though.
I did.
I'm not gonna. Now I'm gonna. It's gonna
got
bug,
him.
Now it's gonna bug me, and it's gonna. I'll go, not that you can't stump me on all sorts of things.
You just stumbled into a new segment on the Hunting Collective called "Got Him."
Another T-shirt.
Yeah, another T-shirt. I like this. We're gonna make lots of money.
So I think we're worried about that, and then I think we're worried about like clean water stuff too. So like when you pass bills like that, and it comes down to compromise, it's like, can you swallow some of the poison pills? And those are the ones we see right now. We couldn't swallow either one of them, and so that would be really hard to say. We don't want that to move forward. Yeah. But there's lame duck will happen. There's also, we're coming up the way all that stuff is going to move would be in a budget bill, which like I think that sunsets like that first week of December, and that's why that's like a huge target date. And so what will probably happen is we'll get another continuing resolution, which isn't bad, especially for Land and Water Conservation Fund, because it basically puts money in there that was in there before at the same level.
Yeah.
So I'm guessing we'll probably just get a continuing resolution, but if not, like that's where this stuff can happen, and like the pressure, especially on LWCF, is there.
Yeah. Is there any other? I know the Farm Bill is kind of in a similar situation.
That could be within that budget process as well. That's like private land stuff, so it's not totally in our wheelhouse.
Yeah, I know that.
But it is a great conservation program, or at least there's the conservation title is like a major important piece of the Farm Bill. So that could definitely move within that budget, kind of process as well. But we'll see.
Yeah. Do you guys track the CWD very much?
A little bit. I mean, I think that, that's more at the state level.
Yeah.
And so, like, our chapter up in Wisconsin in particular is really paying attention to what's going on. It's obviously becoming more of an issue here in Montana.
Yeah.
I'd love to try to think about, like, a federal national solution, but I think it's going to have to be state by state.
Yeah, it's going to have to be. That's another good thing to say about BHA. I know we had, in a previous podcast, had John Gale on, and really, if you want to get just like a real kind of dry, bare bones breakdown of what the organization is, listen to that podcast for sure. But I think one good thing to really talk about with you is that there's the state level influence and the state level work that's being done on behalf of BHA by some people I've met that are just kick-ass volunteers. And just the tribe that's there. Yeah. It's unbelievable.
That's our power.
It's unbelievable.
That's our power. It's and like I always say, we punch way above our weight.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
There's two reasons. First one is we got a hell of a media shop. Like Katie McCaleb is, I think, one of the best relationships and getting our, she can provide a megaphone.
Yeah.
But then the second piece of that is like all these people on the ground, man. That like, the reason that they can punch above their weight is because they're going to these meetings, late at night. They're driving, hours to be at these things. Like their dedication cannot be questioned. Yeah. And the larger we grow, the more those kind of folks that we're attracting. And so that helps us influence things at a state level. And so, whether that's like, in Oregon, where there was the Elliott State Forest, it was on the chopping block, it was another state forest that was going to be sold. Mm-hmm. Like, I mean, people like freaked out about that, and like people on the ground and a lot of our leaders amongst other partners went to the state land board and said no. And at first they were going to be 3-0, for it. And now they were 3-0 against it. And then now that state forest is going to be there for perpetuity. Same things happened down in Wyoming, and I think that it's, again, I think once you empower people too, it's such a cool thing, because then it's like this, then they're talking to people about how excited they are and you can feel it. And so you have these people that are dedicated, and they're getting their own little kind of armies around them. Yeah. And so as these pockets build up, the success at a state level is definitely a place for us to concentrate.
Yeah, I mean, I think as the broader political conversations get more tiresome, like I'm sure you draw energy from those interactions.
Absolutely. And I think, there's a reason why Congress is slow moving, is because and glacial is because if things go fast out there, it might not be great, and like you have this huge pendulum that swings back and forth, and if you have stuff that takes time, usually that's well thought out and all angles have been looked at, and then hopefully it stands the test of time. But it's frustrating. It's more than frustrating sometimes. Yeah. But at a state level, I think you can influence things pretty quickly, and the majority of the time, like those things are going really well, and people. People care about their backyard more than they do about DC, right? And while DC decisions affect them in a major way in their backyard, when you have things that they can work on at a local level that they can affect, that it's empowering to them to where they think now they can go do something out in DC. Yeah.
No, I've seen that in BHA and in really other groups. There's many examples, but it's always been striking to me that, I mean, there's a Texas chapter of BHA, and the place has.
So I'm going to Austin and like the week after Thanksgiving.
Enjoy that.
We're having a storytelling night down there in Filson.
Oh yeah, I heard. Yeah. If I was still living there, I'd be there.
Yeah, they're blowing up. They have 2% public land. Yeah, and those guys are absolutely like one. It's about
no excuses. Other states.
Yeah,
get your shit together. Yeah, Texas is killing it. If you're over there and like you're in Michigan and you're like, we don't know what to do with public lands. Yeah. Get it together. because Texas is throwing parties at the Filson store.
They're crushing it, and it's about individuals.
Yeah.
You know, we have a staffer, Kate DeLorenzo, that covers our whole Southwest. She is absolutely fantastic, but she covers 5 states.
Yeah.
Like, it is the volunteers on the ground right now that are driving that process. And like, when I sometimes, you know, when I hear feedback, you know, oh, our chapter's not growing very well, and like, you know, like, I'm like, well, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Like, well, not really anything. I'm like, that's why. Like, you know, and like, you have to go out and do things. And those folks down in Texas, the men and women down in Texas, are absolutely doers, and they're crushing it. And I would say that's like 99% of our volunteers in this country.
Jason, Mike, Brandon, like all the guys that are down there.
Killing it.
But yeah, and I think that's just an example of the value systems we're talking about. I mean, like these guys live in a place where I live there, and it's not good. Like, living now in Montana, you wake up in the morning, you're like, it's a different feeling. Yeah, it's a real different feeling.
I did my drive over here today.
Yeah.
Like, there were so many places that I just wanted to pull off the road and just go explore for a little bit with this dog, you know, and go see if I could go jump on a duck or something. But like, all that I drove by, not all of it, but a lot of it was public land.
Yeah. And
like, how cool is that? That at any moment I could have been like, oh, I'm just going to pull over and like get out of there. So you are living in a different place, but I also think that those folks down in Texas, and I'm looking forward to going out and talking to them more. But I've had conversations with them, and they almost value it more than I do. You know, like, this is second nature to me. I just drove by all this stuff today. I'm not, you know, like 35% of Montana is public.
Yeah.
They only have 2%, so that stuff down there is really important. And then these opportunities here where they can go explore are absolutely important.
Well, that's it. And that's what, you know, I grew up in the East Coast. I lived in Texas, and now I live here. It's not that, you know, it's like this exclusive Western privilege.
No.
It's all of our privilege.
Absolutely.
And those dudes in the Texas chapter, or I'm sure in the Pennsylvania chapter, get in their trucks. I know they do I know they do it because I see them.
Yeah.
They get in their trucks, they put a cooler in there, they put all their gear, and they fucking drive to Colorado and they shoot an elk, and then they flip around and drive back.
One of the craziest things that I think I've witnessed is over in Colorado, and they have such a weird seasons. Like, they have like those 3 seasons, and they're like long. But like, dudes driving around with like freezers in the back of their trucks.
Yeah, man.
You know, and then you look at the license plate, and it's like Florida, Texas, you know, and so like, they're shooting an elk. They have a generator in the back of the car, you know, and they put on that, and they have these freezers, and they're taking it home.
Dude, I've seen multiple freezers and like a trailer with multiple freezers. That's dedication.
I wonder if that stuff jinxes you though, right? Like, if you come up with like the big,
really, that's presumptive.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Oh, I guess you're gonna kill them all. You know, like,
you brought a whole freezer.
But if you you need that, right?
Yeah. No, but that's, you know, that just shows that I'm very aware of like there being. I know there's this like little internet thing now where people call other hunters like Westies. Oh, the Westies love working out and going up the mountains. I'm from North Carolina. Fuck the Westies. Like, listen, dude. No, shut up. Like, this is. I've lived around and from. I identify as an East Coaster, and this shit's awesome.
Well, I would say that, but then also when I think about North Carolina, they got a national forest there. It's 1.1 million acres. They got all that marsh that's out there. Like, you can get after it and find these pieces
Wherever
of backcountry anywhere you are, you know, and it's just about if that's the kind of thing that you want to do. And if you don't want to do that, that's totally fine.
Yeah.
But you can find it everywhere.
I grew up in Maryland where there isn't a whole lot of it, but I grew up right by Green Ridge State Forest, and I grew up hunting there. Like, that was just a place you could go.
Yeah. How lucky, huh?
How lucky.
Yeah.
And I think that's something for everybody to remember. And like I said, it's easy. It's easy to say that. It's easy to be a part of something that's trending. It's super easy. And I think you got it great. I think you got lucky, man. You have championed an idea that ought to be easy for people to get onto.
Yeah. And when I hope that when you say you, that's like collective BHA.
Yes,
you know, it's not
the
me,
organization.
Tawney. Like, it's like this tribe, this revolution, this like these people each and every day like are the ones that are they're heeding the call, I would say.
And they found, like, you find, and then I found in this, like, this finally some shared ideology that is infallible.
Yeah.
Like, public lands are infallible. Come at me and try to give me one reason why they need to be taken away.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure for the rest of my days, and for, you know, I'll teach my son this, and you're teaching your kids this. Like, don't tread on this shit.
Yeah.
Like, just don't.
Yeah.
And I'm not, you know, I'm willing, I'm an open-minded person, but boy, this is pretty close to concrete.
So I don't know if you've heard this one before, but My friend Corey Fisher from Trial Unlimited coined this. It's like our public lands are our second amendment, you know, like do not touch that, you know, and like if that, you know, that's like, I think that's kind of what you're saying. Like this is like a line in the sand issue, you know, and like for me, I'm pretty lucky. That's the thing that I get to do for a living, but that's the thing that, you know, I care most about after my family. And, you know,
well, we talk a lot about tribe and a lot about, you know, like our people. Like you say that a lot, I find. I say that a lot too.
Yeah.
I say it, you know, in a lot of the same ways that you say it, but like I have very much committed my career and like a lot of my thoughts to our people. Mm-hmm. Hunters, anglers, people that like to go outside, like, you know, you have too. And that's, you know, like that's a pretty damn good way to live life.
Well, and I think, you know, I'm learning every day too, you know, whether that's outdoors, you know, this young dog she's now licking things out of the garbage.
Trash?
Yeah, she's hungry, and that's why she's growling. She doesn't get ornery at all, except when it's dinner time.
Me too.
But like the things that I'm getting to do and explore with her and just learn, you know, about myself and learn about the places that we're hunting is awesome. The things that I'm learning from other people, you know, all across this country that are members of ours, like that is cool. Besides like all kind of sharing that same ethos, you know, and like the same kind of global view is it's like just learning like about these different places all over the country that, you know, that make this country so cool. Yeah, you know.
I will say, like, if you need any education on what BHA is, there's this little thing called the Rendezvous.
Yes. And
if you're wondering if this is for you, and you're like, public lands, I don't know.
Yeah.
And you're wondering if these are your people too, I would suggest that you go to Boise. What's the dates?
May 1 through 4.
May 1 through 4. Bring your drinking pants. Bring your.
There's a little bit of that.
There's a little bit of that. I always bring that up because I like to take. But if you don't,
you don't have to worry about leaving those at home.
No, but you don't. You'll be hydrated one way or the other.
Yeah.
And come and see that thing.
Yeah.
I can honestly say that it's been my job for the last 11 years to go to these things, and in the last couple of years, I've realized like something you know I've been searching for in the hunting community is there at that event, like a shared energy that just is, I don't know how you say it other than it's cool, man. It just is fun.
You know, if it was just like the traditional rendezvous, where people came from all across the country, you know, and just sat around and swapped stories and had a big bonfire. Like that would be just that would be flat out amazing, right? And that's really what this event is. And then you add into that like the Wild Game Cook-Off and the Public Lands Film Fest and the storytelling night, you know, like all these other things, the skills and like the seminars, you know, and like all that even makes it even better. But just that piece that you first described of like people coming like from all across the country and then being like, oh man, I didn't know there was other people that thought like I did.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, like I'm sure Remy wouldn't mind that I say this, but I remember last year I had to leave early and go to a family event, and then talking to Remy Warren on like Monday or something.
Yeah,
and he was the one who first kind of articulated like I just did. He's like, dude, I was like, how's the weekend, man? How'd it go? He's like, dude, man, I've been looking for that for my whole freaking life. You know, I've been looking for this kind of gathering for my whole life, man. Mm-hmm. It is awesome.
That's awesome.
You know, and the fact that guys that love that guy like I do can just go around and he's there hanging out, all the better.
And that's the thing is there's no pretension of BHA. You know, there's no like hierarchy of structure that's like, oh, you can't be a part of this event, or you know, like that's this group over there. Don't break in. Like we did a thing with Ryan Bussey, our chair, John Gale, like all of our directors, right? So there's like 6 of us up on stage. Ask us any question that you want to ask us, you know? And so like, you know, the level of acumen of our members, like the questions they were asking was pretty damn high, which was really cool for me to see.
You're like shuffling your index cards, like, hold on. That's on card 46, hold on.
But like that, I think that session, I had a lot of good feedback from that, is that like, you know, we are an open book, you know, and like, and again, there's besides no hierarchy, it's like this is your organization, you know, and like have conversations with us about like what you want to see or what you don't want to see, and we can move forward, and you know, with all, you know, I think, you know, as we grow, this event, it was 725 people the year before that. Last year it was 1,300, and this year we're probably like reaching 15 to 17. Yeah. Like, it's maintaining that intimacy and maintaining kind of like that open feel that everybody matters. And, there's going to be people there that have scraped every single penny that they can just to get there to the event. And there's going to be people there that have an opportunity, to spend $10,000 on something, right? But all of them together, they share the same ethos and feel like a family and don't feel like there's a separation of the haves and the have-nots, or like the Westies versus the Easties, if we're going to use those. Like, now we're a West Side Story all of a sudden. Like that to me, I think is the juice, and it's kind of hard to describe unless you're there. Like you say, like the energy, but it's palpable, man. Like I freaked out when I got on stage at that storytelling, because I just like. The energy in that room, like, I just couldn't handle it, and I just had like this, like, I was jumping all around like a crazy
freaking
man.
Me out, people.
I had my Howard Dean moment. Remember that scream that he had? Like that was my moment where I was like jumping up like crazy, like all over the stage. But it was because the energy was so rad, and like the conversations that I had, from people all across the country. That map. They had everybody put a pin, kind of where they came from. We had every single state covered, and I think all but 2 Canadian provinces. Like, that to me is pretty darn cool.
Gosh, man, yeah. At some level, that's what I'm after. At some strange level, like I like to hunt alone. But boy, I'd like to have a community around it. Yeah, it's an awesome thing to go do. Yeah, fish too, of course.
It's fun.
Yeah, it's fun. So
May 1 through 4, tickets will go on sale.
Get to Boise
any day now, but it will sell out. So if you're thinking about coming, make sure that you get a ticket early.
I would, yeah, I'll be there.
And it's affordable. I mean, last year it was $175 for the whole weekend. That's like meals and drinks.
It's hard when you go there and you do everything. You're done after a couple of. You're ready to go back to wherever you came from. You're like, dude, that was intense.
Yeah, it is. It's like it's packed. And you can take breaks. I mean, Boise is an amazing place. You got the Boise River running through town.
Maybe this year, yeah.
The foothills.
It's so it's such an intense weekend. Maybe we just have like a Sunday, like just get like a 1,700 beanbag chairs. And everybody
I'd like to see that room, right? Everybody's like,
everybody's just like drinking water and like,
Yeah, they tried to do like a archery shoot last year. They did do an archery shoot last year. The Idaho chapter did. Not very well attended.
Yeah, people are just wearing slippers in their bathrooms.
It was pretty intense.
Yeah,
but it's a lot. I mean, when we say intense, it's so much fun. It's like that FMO, like fear of missing out.
Yeah,
like you don't want to miss any event because it's like so awesome, And so you run yourself ragged a little bit, bouncing from one thing to another.
So maybe take back internally to Missoula the beanbag chair idea.
I'm gonna go pitch that to Frankie.
Do people still sit in beanbag chairs?
Oh yeah, I think college kids.
They sit in them.
Oh yeah,
I'm old, aren't I?
My daughter wants one right now, and I'm like,
that's good. I'm feeling like this comes back to the very beginning of the podcast.
Yeah, it's like this is one place where you're cool. Like thinking about beanbags.
Beanbag chairs.
Yeah, they're in, man.
I was thinking in the editorial space that we have in our new office, I wanted to hang those beads up, that folks used to have on like
in between rooms.
Yeah, rather than a door.
Yeah.
Because I'd like to see somebody come in and be like, hey, like have to do this to talk to me, or talk to somebody in the editorial department.
It's not going over well yet.
I haven't. I mean, I'm trying to build like a kind of a style, like beanbag chairs, beads,
lava lamps.
Oh yeah, lava lamps.
Babysitter told me I got home the other day and she goes like, me and your kids looked at the lava lamp for like 20 minutes. Awesome. Like since we don't let them watch TV and stuff, so like that's their electronic that they're watching is this lava lamp, and it was so intriguing that it was 20 minutes of that.
20 minutes of just staring at a lava lamp.
Yeah. And that's not like other people that are staring at those.
I think once we actually build the MeatEater podcast studio, we may have to incorporate
a lava lamp.
Yeah,
and a beanbag. Dude, that'd be sweet.
Anyway, feel free to steal those ideas.
All right, I'll go back to Frankie and be like, okay, we're gonna have a lava lamp lounge with
beanbag chairs and beads. I think like that'd be cool, man.
Yeah.
All right, Lan. Thank you for doing what you do, hanging out, man. I always appreciate you.
Ben, thank you for being on the board. Thank you for this opportunity on the podcast, man. I mean, it's the bully pulpit that you got, and I appreciate what you're doing. I appreciate the time that you had for us today.
Well, we're gonna keep doing it.
Cool.
All right, brother.
Thank you.
See ya. That's it. That's all. Episode number 36 in the books. Thank you very much to Lan Tawney for coming to Bozeman and hanging out in the MeatEater offices and talking shop. I really appreciate it, as always. And so if you're unfamiliar with BHA, hopefully now you know what they're all about, what they do for our community, and check them out and get informed. And if you want to become a member, please do. I am, and I believe in their mission. And I would say that openly always. And I believe in public lands, and I believe the value that they bring to all of us. And I'll probably be a broken record for that as long as this podcast exists. So I hope you're on board. If not, let's talk it through. Really hope that you listened last week to Morgan Mason, our associate editor here at MeatEater Incorporated, for episode number 35. If you missed it, go back, listen to Morgan. It was a great podcast. Next Tuesday, episode number 37, I'm going to be joined by our very own Giannis Patelis, and we're going to be looking into the ethical quandaries of our audience. So we asked on Instagram for folks at BennyOB301 to give us some ethical quandaries. We got a bunch of good ones, so Yanni and I are going to sit down and tackle those for episode number 37. So be sure to stay tuned next Tuesday morning. And until then, go to themeateater.com, go to the Listen tab, hit up the Hunting Collective, hit up Anchored, hit up Wired Hunt, hit up the MeatEater podcast, of course, with one Steve and Ranella, and then go to the page and sign up for our newsletter to get weekly updates on all of our content into your email inbox. It'll be awesome, I promise. All right, until next time, we'll see ya from Bozeman, Montana. Bye.
You ever get that feeling the walls closing in, the concrete jungle suffocating you? You crave some wide open spaces, the chance to connect with nature, maybe in a spot all your own. Well, head over to land.com. They've got ranches, forests, mountains, streams, you name it. Search by acreage. You can search by location. You can search by the kind of hunting and fishing you're dreaming of. Land.com. It is where the adventure begins. Hey guys, turkey season is in full swing right now, and if you are planning on getting after it, make sure to pick up some MeatEater Phelps turkey calls to stuff into the old turkey vest or into your fanny pack right now. I carry a few different things. I like to use mouth calls, and I like to use pot calls. Mouth calls or diaphragms, I like them because it gives you hand-free calling, meaning when you're working a bird up close, you can have your gun on your knee, finger on the trigger, ready to roll, and still be making turkey sounds. I like pot calls. I just like pot calls. I enjoy calling with a pot call. Whatever direction you go, including a box call, which I don't personally use too much, but they're fun and great, and I started out with them. Yanni, on the other hand, one of my main turkey hunting buddies, he loves box calls. And what's funny is I'll now and then look to him and give him the look that means get out your box call and find us a turkey. So it's not that I don't like them. I just have Yanni use his. Then I don't have to carry it. Go to Phelps Game Calls. Get calls that are made in the USA and get calls that'll get them close. Find yours at phelpsgamecalls.com today.